Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where you come to hear stories about people who truly think they can do no wrong and they should always get what they want. Just like this person right here, who believes they're owed a bigger discount by serving in the military. Called to see if they had a military discount, and yes, they do 5%. They can't even do 10%. Glad my service means nothing to these people. And look at that star. 1-star review. If you think that's entitled, take a look at this. So I've been playing guitar for almost 9 years, and have gotten pretty good. I figured I would save up some money and treat myself to a nice one after using a $150 Craigslist buy for a while. So I bought myself a $1,300 Epiphone jumbo size acoustic/electric. It has an electric tuner and stuff, and had 2 amp ports, but is still acoustic. My friend has just been wanting to learn for a while, and he's just been using the one I had to teach him and practice and stuff. When he found out I spent a large amount of money on a really nice guitar, he was really angry, saying that I should have spent the money on 2 mid-range guitars for both of us, and was selfish for thinking of me and not him. Am I the a-hole here? Definitely not OP. You don't owe your friend anything. You know why? Because if you bought 2 mid-range guitars, after a few months, your friend might have gotten bored of learning how to play guitar, and it will just collect dust. I've been there, I've done that, my friend. Enjoy your $1,300 guitar. My friends, if you think those two are entitled, let me tell you about the stories in today's episode. So the first story, OP talks about her entitled coworker. The second story, you've got a senior citizen couple stealing airplane seats. The third, a Karen loses it over a table. And we'll finish up with a Karen in the emergency room, whose behavior is just ridiculous. Guys, I truly did save the best story for last, because that story is absurd. You guys are in for a treat today, so buckle up and enjoy the ride, and don't forget to hit subscribe if you aren't already. So my boyfriend buys me really unique bouquets and arrangements of flowers every now and then and sends them to my office. It always goes to the receptionist first, as she has to check in all the deliveries. So one day, she calls me up and says I have a gift at the front, so I head downstairs. I go and grab them, and she asks me to wait and to back up so she can get the perfect picture of them. I was confused, but I let her take a picture because they were beautiful. I assumed she just wanted to show someone else. But then, I see on her Snapchat that she took a picture of them captioning it, "Thank you so much, babe. I love the flowers." So she's known to do that all the time. She takes pictures of other people's cars, jewelry, etc. and claims it as her own on social media. Anywho, I get another call a few months later for a gift at the front. Now, this time I go down, and she's picking out the flowers that she doesn't like. I ask her what the hell she's doing, and she says that she wants to take another picture for Snapchat, but she doesn't like the arrangement this time. And she told me to ask my boyfriend next time to just send roses instead. I snatched the flowers away and told her off because, wow, maybe buy your own flowers then. After writing this out, it seems pretty stupid to get heated, as I did at the moment, but I was so shocked that she didn't find anything wrong with what she was doing. So OP has every right to be heated. If I was getting sent flowers to work, which I never do by the way, and somebody else passed it off as a gift to themselves, I'd get pretty peeved. Or maybe not in this situation. I kind of feel bad for the receptionist because her boyfriend doesn't send her stuff to work. So as for taking pictures of other people's cars, jewelry, etc. and claiming it as her own on social media, that's kinda sad and pathetic, in my opinion. I'm not calling her pathetic. So take a look at this comment right here though, my friends. This person writes, "I worked as a receptionist at an office, and some flowers came in for one of my coworkers. I called her to the front and gave them to her. Right after she left, another woman at the front office came asking me who they were from. I said, how should I know? And they asked me, didn't you read the card? Like, no, why would I? From then on, they did not like me. It always blows my mind how nosy some people can be." That is super duper nosy. You guys know what's worse than nosy people? People who try to play their age card to get what they want, which is what this next story is all about, my friends. A few years ago, my significant other and I planned a 3-month trip around the world. Our first flight was from New Zealand to LA, which was 12 to 13 hours. We booked and paid for our flights, and I added the premium economy seats as I'm 6'3" and wanted the extra legroom. It cost an extra $60. This flight was with Air New Zealand. The screen has your name on it when you get to your seat, and we get on the plane and find that our seats had an older couple sitting there. They looked to be in their mid-70s. I asked them if they got confused with their seat numbers, and they hadn't. I showed them my ticket and seat number and point to my name on the screen. They then asked me to just sit in their seats, which was 10 rows back, no legroom. I asked them, "So, you want me to sit in your seats?" The old people said, "Yes, that would be nice, thank you. We could really use the extra space." I told them I paid extra for these seats and would like to sit in them. Please move to your seats. And they said, "Oh, it's not that bad. There's plenty of legroom in our seats too." Then why don't you go there then? I will gladly help you move your bags. So the flight attendant comes along because the line is getting long, and the old people said, "This man wants us to move seats. These are our seats. We specifically booked these because we need the legroom." The flight attendant looks at me and says, "Sir, please go to your allocated seats." I told her, "Here's my ticket, and these people are sitting in my seats. I paid extra because I need the legroom." So the flight attendant says to the old people, "Excuse me, you're gonna have to move to your own seats as you have not paid for these seats." And the old people responded, "Well, can we please have an upgrade? We can really use the extra space." The flight attendant told them, "Sorry, this is a full flight, so that's not possible." And the old people were stunned. I got some stink eyes from the other people on the flight, but I paid extra for legroom, and I need it. I just have one question. Stink eye for what? OP was sitting in his rightful seat that he paid for. I didn't see OP describe in the story that others were jumping at this opportunity to give up their seat for the older couple. Guys, I might have given up my seat. Might. If the flight was shorter. Like 2 to 3 hours, I would have considered it. But 12 to 13 hours from New Zealand to LA, not a chance. My friends, let me know what you would have done in this situation. I'd love to know how many people would have gladly given up their seats for the older couple. So the next story, we have a Karen in a coffee shop who is just lovely, because Karens are just lovely people. So yesterday, Sunday, I decided to get up early and go get myself organized. Me and my partner are in the middle of sorting our flat and need to go pick up some bits from Argos and the pet store for my cat. My partner was working. I live in a fairly large city, near a retail park, and stupidly did not check the Sunday opening hours for the shops. So I get there at about 9:45 a.m., and most shops did not open till 10:30 a.m. So I found a place and decided to have some breakfast and a drink until the shops actually opened. When I got there, the place was pretty dead. There was only me and 2 other people in there. The table layout was in groups of 4, so I just sat myself down and played on my phone for a little bit. It turns out that there's a little kids workshop that goes on every Sunday nearby, so while I was sitting there, it got busy very fast. Soon there was nowhere to sit down. I'd nearly finished my drink, but it was still only 10:15 a.m., and as it was freezing, I didn't fancy standing outside the shop until it opened. The line was quite long at this point, with maybe 20 people or so in line. I noticed a lady, Karen, talking to her husband and looking at me. She was maybe 15th in line. They had a little kid with them, maybe 5 or 6 years old. Karen made a beeline for my table with a little kid in tow, and she says, "Excuse me, do you mind moving so we can sit down?" I told her, "You guys are more than welcome to sit with me. I'm just waiting for Argos to open in 10 minutes, and then I'll be off." She says, "No, you need to move. We want this table to ourselves. You're finished with your drink, so it's unfair of you to hog the table." I told her I'm literally leaving in 10 minutes. I don't want to wait outside in the freezing cold, and you're more than welcome to share the table with me till then. And by the time your husband's ordered and got your drinks, I will have left anyway. So Karen raises her voice at me and says, "No, you need to move now. I have a kid that needs to sit down, and you're being selfish." Her screeching has alerted one of the baristas, who came over and asked if everything was okay. And Karen says, "She has finished her drink and won't move, so we can't sit down. Tell her she has to leave." I took a pointed sip of my coffee at this point to emphasize I wasn't actually done yet. The barista says, "Miss, she's still drinking her drink, and she's a paying customer as well, and she has the right to sit here." The barista looks at me and says, "Do you mind sharing your table?" I went to say that I had already offered the table, but Karen cut over me and said, "I don't want to share the table with her. She needs to leave." Barista tells her, "This is a family establishment. I suggest you stop shouting and either share the table with someone or leave." Karen says, "Fine, I'll leave, and I'll tell everybody not to come here." She storms off grabbing her husband, and the barista rolled her eyes at me and went back to the counter. A minute later, a young woman came over and asked if the kid could sit down with me while she ordered drinks. I said yes. I spent 5 minutes playing with the kid, and by the time the young mother came back, I was packing up my bits to go, and they got a nice table to themselves by just being nice. Oh my goodness, when will people learn that getting aggressive literally gets you nowhere? There's no point in yelling at a complete stranger and making a huge scene. I'm pretty sure Karens just do that to look foolish at this point. So the last story, my friends, is absolutely ridiculous. This is entitlement at its maximum. A Karen thinks OP's daughter is not as important as hers. So this happened yesterday. My 3-year-old daughter was diagnosed with bacterial pneumonia, and we ended up in the emergency room because she was struggling to breathe. Now, pneumonia is very serious. She was put on a nebulizer and given an IV for more meds while we waited for a room to open up in the PICU. The emergency room was pretty full. The rooms are small and you share them. There's a curtain that divides them and there's no doors, just another curtain. At around 4 p.m., a family arrives with a mom, a dad, and a 5-year-old daughter. The mom briefly looks on my side of the room and could see my little toddler laying in the bed hooked to a machine with an IV. It's obvious that this is not a stubbed toe. So I can't help but hear the parents explaining why their kid's in the emergency room. Stomach pain. Meanwhile, the kid is asking for something to eat. She sounds quite perky. Parents insist that she has a kidney infection, and whatever. I don't know her history, and I'm not interested. So my daughter was given a steroid through her nebulizer to help open up her airways. Her O2, which they wanted 90 or above, kept dipping down to the low 80s, making an alarm sound. The nebulizer makes some noise, and the side effect is hyperactivity, so my extremely sick kid was medically wired as hell. Within 30 minutes of arriving, the entitled Karen calls for a nurse and asks for a private room because their daughter needs to rest somewhere quiet. Meanwhile, their daughter was blasting Ryan's toy review from her tablet and loudly demanding chocolate chip cookies and milk. The nurse explains that there's no private rooms in the emergency room. My daughter then starts to have a coughing fit, which is scary as her O2 drops off and she nearly chokes until she vomits. 2 nurses came in, trying to help her by suctioning her and patting her on the back. My daughter is turning blue. Now here's where I get upset. I hear the Karen ask the nurse, "How long are we going to be expected to listen to that for?" Afterwards, my daughter was wiped out and she was crying a little, and the mom rang for the nurse again and asked again for someplace quiet so her little girl can rest. Her daughter was making a lot of noise playing with something. Then they started playing with the lights. The room has a switch to control the lights on each side, and then a master switch to cut out all the lights. So my daughter is afraid of the dark. The dad turns off the lights of the whole room, making it quite dark with the curtain over the doorway drawn. I tell my husband to turn on the lights on our side, which he does, and the Karen calls the nurse to complain that it's too bright for her little girl to sleep. It's 5 p.m. The nurse explained that they're welcome to shut the lights off on their side, but they have to leave our side alone. They complain about how ill their daughter is. Meanwhile, my daughter's basically gasping for breath, and I'm sure they know as they can hear everything. The nurse leaves and they shut the lights off for the entire room again, and my husband immediately turns ours on and calls through the curtain that we need our lights on. Silence. Our nurse comes in to attend to my daughter's IV, and they attempt to get her to force us to have the lights off. Our nurse basically tells them to knock it off. Then they start pushing for more space. They attempt to push our chair away, where my husband is sitting. They then put their chair way over on our side of the room, pushing the curtains into our faces, essentially. My husband pushes it back, and they call to complain and rinse and repeat. Finally, a room in the PICU opens up, and we're told that we would be admitted in an hour. Karen complains that they asked for a private room first. The nurse explains that we're being admitted, not being given a private room in the emergency. So the parents demand that they be admitted first because their daughter is much more sick and should come first, as we've been here for a while already. The nurse says that there's no reason for their daughter to be admitted as she's just constipated, and as soon as she poops, they will be free to go. And that's when the parents freak out and lose it on the nurse. So yeah, that's my story of how the parents of a little girl who needed to take a dump felt they were more important than a little girl with pneumonia. My friends, this story is absolutely ridiculous. It's one of the few stories where it kind of upsets me. Like, I understand that Karen's concerned for her own crotch goblin. Okay, I'm kidding. That's mean. I understand that Karen is concerned about her own daughter. But if you're in the emergency, you gotta realize that there's other parents in there that may have it worse. And in this situation, OP did have it worse. Karen's behavior and lack of empathy is just disgusting. And to place her daughter above OP's daughter in importance really gets me upset, guys. So I don't want to end off on a bad note and leave you guys upset here. So take a look at these 3 pictures of dogs smiling. And oh my goodness, it's so freaking adorable. Look at this one. Look at the smile on this dog. My friends, and that brings us to another end of our /entitled people. We made it! We survived! Guys, if you enjoyed the stories in this episode and you enjoyed the time with me, do hit that subscribe button to hear more. And if you missed the last episode of our /entitled people, listen guys, you gotta check it out. OP's neighbor gets upset that he won't share his Wi-Fi password with her because she refuses to pay for her own internet. What? Check it out if you haven't, and I'll see your wonderful faces in the next one because I'm watching you. I'm just kidding. I love you guys.